In the last years of the 18th century, when Kentucky was still more shadow than statehood, and the map of America was drawn as much in rumor as in ink, there stood a farm no traveler remembered fondly, though almost everyone knew its name in a whisper. They called it Briar Hollow, though nothing there bloomed. The farm squatted between two ridgelines like a watching animal, its fields always strangely empty, its fences always strangely mended, as if the land obeyed hands no one ever saw. The road that led to it was not on any official survey. It was born of wagon wheels, fear, and necessity, used only by those who thought a shortcut through the wilderness was worth a risk they did not yet understand. It was there, in 1798, that the Crow family lived. Caleb Crow, a tall man with eyes that looked past whatever he gazed upon. His wife, Martha Crow, whose voice could sound like prayer or threat depending on the light, and their silent children, who learned early that secrets were as common as corn and that the forest listened better than neighbors. Settlers spoke of them as people speak about storms, unpredictable, unavoidable, vaguely supernatural. They were the sort of family that arrived with no history and accumulated one that no one dared to write down. People vanished near Briar Hollow. Horses turned up wandering without riders. Wagons leaned empty against trees, and the wind, moving over the hills, seemed always to be carrying the same question: what happens on that farm? The records preserved from that time are not church books or court rulings, but fragments of letters, broken diary entries, and stories told so often they hardened into folklore. They tell of lights flickering on the Crow property long after sensible farmers had extinguished candles, of the low hum of voices when no guests were known to be present, and of the way dogs refused to walk past the boundary fence, whining as if the soil itself scolded them. Travelers remembered the same experience again and again, though none of them could have read each other's minds. A feeling, strong as hunger, telling them to keep moving, not to stop, not to ask for water, not to knock at the door where a lantern burned but never flickered. But people are people, tired, trusting, hopeful, and the Crows learned early that kindness is a lock that opens any door. Caleb greeted wayfarers like a brother just returned from war. He offered a seat, bread, rest, the promise of dawn. Martha listened with perfect attention to every story, every complaint, every mention of where a traveler came from and who might miss them. The children watched, voiceless, learning from the faces of strangers what fear looks like and how slowly it grows. The house itself came to feel like part of the family, its hallways bending slightly, its windows narrow as eyes, its cellar swallowing sound in a way that made even the bravest visitors comment, half joking, that it seemed built to keep secrets rather than potatoes. No one ever imagined, at first, that the Crows were anything more than peculiar. Frontier life made everyone peculiar. But the pattern sharpened over months, and then years, like a photograph in chemical wash. People went in, and fewer came out. The first man to suspect truth was not a sheriff or preacher but a surveyor, Elias Warren, whose job was to give shape to land that refused to be tamed. He marked property lines, cut through bramble, and tried to draw sense over wilderness, like a blanket that never quite fit. Elias kept careful notes because careful notes are what kept him from getting lost, and it was in those pages that he began to realize the land around Briar Hollow had more names than people. Vanished, he wrote again and again, as if it were a location rather than a fate. He marked last known camps, abandoned fire rings, boot impressions that led to nothing, and, always, the same destination in common, a path bending toward the Crow farm. He never accused them aloud at first. Accusation on the frontier was as dangerous as disease. But he wrote to his brother back east and said, with the certainty of a man who had walked farther than most, "Something is wrong with that house. It eats the road." That sentence would become the only thing historians later agreed on. What Elias did next has two versions, one cold, factual, and one dark, told by firesides but both end the same way. He went to Briar Hollow before dawn and he did not return. It is said Martha Crow kept an account book with tidy, elegant handwriting, the kind taught in Eastern academies she never admitted attending, not a ledger of crops or debts, but of guests. A list of names without last names, descriptions without destinations. Tall man, quiet. Widow, 2 sons. Peddler with cracked mirror. The book never surfaced after the last Crow child was seen, but everyone in 3 counties believed it existed because it felt like something Martha would do, not to preserve memory out of kind.